It's time for Two Guys and a Goalie with Dustin Nielsen, Matt Cassian, and the goalie, Joaquin Gage.
All right, it is 12:03 on a huge day, just a huge day. In no specific order, new graphics for all of Edmonton sports talk, including Two Guys and a Goalie. Leon Draisaitl signs an 8-year extension at $14 million per. And our new shows begin after Two Guys and a Goalie today. I will not be saying, all right, let's go to a Nielsen Show replay on TuneIn or iHeart. We will be sending you over to EST afternoons with Hernan Salas and Joaquin Gage. Gagers are going to focus on that show today. He was on the morning show already as well, so he's not on Two Guys today. And then Reed Wilkins has been in here since like 10 o'clock working on their show, and that's going to get fired up at 3 o'clock today. So Reed Wilkins show from 3 to 6 right here on Edmonton Sports Talk. Cass, a glorious, glorious, glorious day here at EST. Is that a classic Cass mute scenario?
Wouldn't be Two Guys and a Goalie.
I wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't have it any other way.
And I was just saying how excited I am. Like, this is the most excited I've been in a while for sports and entertainment media. So fantastic. They're just afternoon shows, plugging through new graphics, Leon signs. There's so much to be excited about. It's a good day for that. It's a good day. Very, very good day. Of course, Two Guys and Goalie presented to you by GS Construction. Visit their website, www.gsconstruction.ca. You can visit their page on Indeed. They are hiring now. If you want to be part of just an absolutely outstanding team, go work with the Sandman and his crew over at GS Construction. Leon Draisaitl won't have to worry about having a side gig anytime soon as he gets done. Lots of text messages. Look, if you're listening on TuneIn or iHeart or at edmontonsportstalk.com, you can text us anytime, 780-218-9999, 780-218-9999. If you're watching over on YouTube today, two things. Sub to the channel if you haven't already. Hammer the thumbs up for us as well. And, of course, dive in on the nasty chat today. This is the big news. Leon Draisaitl. Cass, let's just start with this. Did you ever, deep down inside, think for a moment or two that he would actually leave? No, not really. Not really. Like, you're going to have little moments where you're like, oh, what if he does? What if he does? What if they can't get something done? Like, you have like those little thoughts at times, but if you put any kind of rational thought into it, you're like, There's no way. There's no way. Like, if you just logically and even emotionally just think about it, you're like, there is no way they don't get this done. So it's not surprising that they get it done. I mean, I'm happy. I'm excited. It's expensive, as we knew it was going to be. Means you're going to have a lot of money tied up and not that many guys, and you're going to have to be, and Bowman is going to have to be incredibly cognizant of some of the next decisions that they start to make. But for today, you get the certainty of Leon, and there was no way, Dusty, there's no way they didn't get this done. Also, great call yesterday, by the way.
Thanks, man. To you. Yeah, it was.
Before I forget to say that,
the second half provided me with a few moments where I could come out of my seat a little bit. Like, the fumble, the return by Logan, the deep shot to Tevin Jones to basically seal the game away. It was funny because I was very jealous I didn't get to call that Riders Bombers game just because it was wild. And then the Edmonton Calgary game it lived up to it. Edmonton looks like a pretty good football team right now too. So thank you, Cass. I appreciate that. I think that's a football team locally here that's heading in the right direction for sure. But you nail it. And look, if you're listening, text us. I see a bunch of text messages rolling in over on the nasty chat. We'll get to that as well. It was always a topic, especially people out of the market would talk about it. But when it comes down to it, we sat here with the Draisaitl thing and went, okay, so let's just see. He's going to want to get the most money. Well, they got a billionaire owner here. They'll make it work on the cap. He's not leaving because of money. And he wants to be in a contender. Well, they just missed the Stanley Cup by one game. Like, I don't know what would have been a better spot. Like, that's what the Oilers have done here. And it's largely due to Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. So I'll give these two guys a lot of credit. But what they've created here is exactly what they would have been looking for somewhere else. And they've already got that here. So to me, that was the end of it. As soon as you developed this Stanley Cup caliber team with the ownership situation that they have here, I would have been absolutely stunned if he ended up anywhere else, really.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And for Leon, loves playing with Connor, the best power play in the league. They're going to put up a ton of points. Like where else is he going to get that? Nowhere else. He's not going to get that anywhere else. And even for, all the Leafs fans that are probably a little salty isn't the right word, but they're like, oh yeah, McDavid's not going to resign in Edmonton. He's going to sign in Toronto because he wants to play at home. Well, Leon and McDavid like playing together. McDavid's going to want to play with Leon. Now with him signing long-term, it's a huge positive for Connor McDavid coming back to Edmonton, but they're really, from a play standpoint, probably wasn't a better team for him to go to. Now you always look at like taxes and then that last year of only being able to get 7 years somewhere else versus 8 years in Edmonton. And that's always something where you have to look at it and say, okay, we really have to consider this here as being, an issue with the money from a tax standpoint. But that extra year at $14 million, who knows what your body looks like in year 7 or year 8. Like that extra year makes a big difference, which is why you have it from a negotiation standpoint. If you re-sign with
that's an advantage, team, right? For that team, that's their big advantage.
That's their big advantage, is being able to do that extra year for these big name guys, which is where he gets it. And yeah, I mean, he's now Dusty not going anywhere.
Yeah, he is not going anywhere. Your reaction to 780-218-9999. The Liquid Beaver says, I love how Leon said, I can't see myself being in any other jersey. That's a good thing to see. I know people will be pretty fired up about that. D. White says, I'm excited to have him signed, but I wouldn't consider $14 million a Stanley Cup discount, and I'm concerned about the cap situation once Bouchard and McDavid sign their new contracts. Yeah, I mean, yes, you're concerned about a cap situation. A lot of teams are concerned about the cap situation. Yeah. The cap is something that will go up. They tried to address the concerns about their cap situation by not committing $7 million to Holloway and Broberg. That would have been $7 million that they wouldn't have had to get this deal done next year. So they're trying to be a little bit more responsible with it. I viewed it as, 14 mil is not a hometown discount, but committing to the Edmonton Oilers for 8 years is a hometown commitment, Cass. That's how I look at it. I mean, we can sit here and I know some fans will bitch about the extra $500,000 a year or whatever, but this dude just decided that he was going to stay with your franchise for basically his entire career, or at least all the good years of his career. That's a hometown commitment that I think a lot of people just gloss over because of the 14 mil.
I don't know why people are. You can be concerned about the percentage of the overall cap and having to re-sign other guys like that. That's a legitimate concern. We'll talk about that in a minute. But there's no obligation to sign a hometown discount. We've talked about this before. I think especially in the Canadian markets, we're like hometown discount. And it's like, players should be and are under no obligation to sign a hometown discount. And Leon Draisaitl, for the prime of his career, shouldn't have to. I mean, he showed his commitment, as you mentioned, to the team by signing an 8-year deal, and to the city, and to wanting to win here, and to wanting to win Stanley Cups here. That's like, he showed that by signing this deal. There's no way he should have signed a hometown discount. And one of the things I think for Bowman that the team is looking at, because the cap went up this year, I think they're anticipating it to jump up by quite a bit the next couple of years.
Yeah.
With the primary driver of that being getting that franchise out of Arizona and into Utah, where you hopefully now will have a franchise that all of a sudden is going to start to make some serious money. Because if you think about it, if they start to turn a profit and they turn a $32 million profit, let's say for the year or whatever it is, well, that bumps up, the salary cap significantly. Like if they can start to really add to league revenue, the salary cap will be going up among all the other initiatives the league has. So I think they're banking on that the cap is going to see some good growth here the next little bit, which makes the percentage a little bit more palpable. But I do understand the concern about this is going to be a big chunk of your salary cap. But don't give me any kind of like, oh, they should have gone him for 13.5. Like you just had him on a big hometown discount for a number of years. You're paying him what he's worth. He deserves $14 million, and it's reasonable and fair to me.
Yeah, like I look at it, if you were to divide it up on the percentage of the cap, I mean, whatever it is, Leon Draisaitl is probably still more important to your team than that $14 million. You know what I mean? Like he's that critical to the success of your organization, the future of your organization. And I thought Hustler on the Lock Shop today made a very interesting point where he said Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid aren't the guys who should be taking any hometown discounts. They're the guys who are the reason other guys take hometown discounts. And like, look at the Nuge, for example. Like Nuge is on a really nice deal. And he probably took it because he knows Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are going to help lead him to a Stanley Cup championship. You know what I mean? Like
your hometown discount for Skinner signing. And it's not even a hometown discount, but the discount that he took for signing to play with Leon and to play with Connor. Like that's you're exactly right. That $500,000 will be made up elsewhere because you can offer someone $500K less to say, hey, listen, you're getting to come here and play with Leon and Connor. You're going to have a chance at winning a cup. Like that's where that leverage comes in for sure.
780-218-9999. It's two guys and a goalie. Nielsen and Cass with you today, presented by GS Construction. They're hiring now. Become a part of their great team today by visiting gsconstruction.ca. For the past 50 years, their foundation of GS Construction has been built on efficiency, quality, and safety. Take your career to the next level. Join the team at GS Construction. This is interesting. The Gordfather is in and says, you know, when you base it also on like his last contract, says the blended Draisaitl cap is 16 years at 11.1 mil. So that's what it would be sort of laid out on. And I mean, you get 16 years of Leon Draisaitl, 11.1 million. You got to be pretty happy with what he's delivered for sure. Yeah. If you're watching over on YouTube today, hammer the thumbs up for us. This feels like a 100 like day on Two Guys and a Goalie for sure. So if you're watching over there, hammer the thumbs up. If you have not yet subbed to the channel, we'd appreciate the sub if we pushed up and beyond 10,000 subs. And make sure you stick around. EST Afternoons with Hernan Salas and Joaquin Gage coming up from 1 to 3. And then the debut of the Reed Wilkins show as well from 3 to 6. And could not pick a better day for like the Elks alone winning the Labor Day Classic in Calgary would have been a great way for those guys to start their shows. Now we get the Draisaitl stuff as well. So if you're listening on TuneIn or iHeart, tell your friends how easy it is to consume our content, and they too can hop in. Let's get into some of your comments right now over on the Nasty Chat on YouTube. TubeSock says, I just don't know why anyone think that players should take less than they are worth. That's just a strange way of thinking. It is kind of funny, like in our everyday jobs, Cass, right? Like if I'm like, they're like, listen, man, we know you're worth this much, but how about you take this much? It's just, I don't think and like, I mean, their money's a different level than any of our monies, but I still don't know why anybody would ever do that, right? I don't know why we'd expect others to do it.
Especially with a limited career window, where it's like you're not going to make this much money every year for the rest of your life. Like you have a limited earning window and it's significant money. And I know everyone's like, we hear all the time, like, oh, well, you know, that's not significant money to them. It is significant money to them. It is significant money to them. $500,000 a year for 8 years is significant money. That is not nothing. Like just think, okay, if you pay over half of that in taxes, so $250K a year, you want to tell me being able to save that, invest it, to do something with it every single year is not going to impact you long term? It's a huge deal. And I don't know why we're so obsessed with hometown discounts either. I think it's, again, if a guy's like in the last year of his career and he's like, hey, I really want to win, so I'm going to take something cheap to go play somewhere to get it. Like that I understand. But for a long-term deal for a guy in his prime of his career, that could go and make really good money elsewhere, it just doesn't make any sense for the player. It doesn't make any sense for the agent, and I think it's ludicrous if we put those expectations on them.
Colin the Amishman is into the inbox here at 780-218-9999. This will be the first time ever the Oilers will have superstars finish their careers with the team. It is an absolutely wonderful day to be an Oilers fan. And that's what Nuge is likely going to finish his career with this team. And then obviously guys on McDavid and Draisaitl's level. Draisaitl looks like it. He didn't want to say too much today on his availability about Connor, but I'd be pretty surprised if Leon signs for 8 years and next year Connor's like, peace, I'm going to Utah. Like, I just don't see that happening.
I don't either, which is what I said earlier, where it's like you get some certainty to a certain extent around Connor McDavid because he's going to want to keep playing with Leon. It's going to be the same situation. So now you're going to have to pay him more than $14 million. McDavid will become the highest paid player in the league, but yeah, you at least have that. Just locking Leon up gives you a much higher percentage chance. Not that I think it's kind of the same thing where it's like you could kind of emotionally think sometimes like, oh, what if Connor doesn't sign? But it's like there's no way they let him walk. There's zero chance they let him walk. Just similar to how Leon was zero chance or close to zero chance they let him walk. And this just even makes that chance of Connor leaving even lower. I mean, he's going to want to keep playing with Leon. So very unlikely that McDavid doesn't get a deal done next year.
Here's a funny way to look at this, a funny question. And get your text and thumbs ready, get your nasty chat thumbs ready here. Like I'm looking from non-Stanley Cup winning days. And obviously the Gretzky situation, the Gretzky trade was a negative. From a non-Stanley Cup winning day, where does this day rank among the greatest in Edmonton Oilers history? You're getting Leon Draisaitl signed for the next 8 years, knowing that Connor McDavid will likely follow along. When you look at monumental days in a positive fashion for this organization, not including the 5 Stanley Cup wins, this has got to be right up there, Cass. I don't want to put you on the spot, but like everybody else, nasty chat, text line 780-218-9999. Like where would this extension rank? What do you think? 7-8? It's got to be right up there.
It's got to be up there,
especially if you believe that this also means McDavid's getting done. Then today's a huge day.
Yeah, I mean, if we're ranking it in front of things that are maybe in front, probably the Connor McDavid draft.
Yeah, draft. Yeah, draft the lottery day. Yeah, lottery day might be right at the top of that list.
Might be right at the top of that list.
Yeah,
probably maybe still in front of it for me. That would probably
lottery day for sure. That'd be number one.
Yeah, that would be number one. Lottery day for Connor McDavid. That would be number one. Locking him in here to this, it's got to be up there. I'm trying to think of what else we could put in front of there.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like when you look at positives. Most of the time, the dates we remember are the trade was 1-for-1 and Prongers leaves in this and all that type of stuff. I'm trying to think from straight up positive. McDavid draft lottery would definitely be at the top of the list, but is from a non-Stanley Cup winning day. I mean, is this number 2? This one's in. Surveyor Brett says, "Wow, throwing shade at the Derek Brassard era." This one from Big Uke says this falls just above Nuge signing and just below Chia trading for the guy who broke Connor's collarbone. A little bit of difference there. Yeah, I don't know. Well, it's got to be up there pretty high. Has to be. Duck Dad says Lowe, Messier, and Anderson in one draft.
Yeah,
that's a pretty big day. I mean, getting Wayne at the beginning.
Yeah.
Probably went quite a ways too.
We're looking, I mean, I've been thinking more like modern era.
Yeah, modern era.
Like post
Stanley Cups. That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. It's kind of where I'm thinking. And that's pretty yeah. So
Trevor in Airdrie says, as for positives here, that only would be above the Draisaitl signing. Would be the day we realized the Oilers weren't going to move anywhere. So yeah, we've had some other people say, Kate's taking over the team as well. That's something.
I understand if you have that up there. Yeah, that's something for sure.
Guys, this ranks right up there, and it's even better. We can rub it in the noses of all those people in Ontario who said Leon and Connor would never re-sign with the Oilers. The La Bamba farmer says the Pronger trade has to be right up there. I would agree. I mean, led to a hell of a run and then ended obviously horribly. But that would be a big one. This text is in for the first time ever. It comes in from Leon the Dog. One of the biggest days in franchise history since EAG saved the team from moving. Absolutely massive, massive day. Larry Zima is in and says trading Lucic has to be right up there as well. This text is in and says getting Cujo and getting Pronger. Tay texts in and says obviously drafting Jesse Puljujärvi. I like that one. That one's That one's good. I like that.
That's a good one.
Yeah, there's Tyler Twigger says slightly below Magnus Payarvi pick day. So, yeah, that's a good one. Justin Balgoni says Sidney Crosby, when he signed in 2012, took up 13.53% of their cap. Draisaitl's taking up 15.4% of the cap. Not much of a difference. Plus, Crosby signed a 12-year deal in that situation. And JJ's in and says, I'm in Ontario. And I've been a fan since the 80s. I wanted them to stay. Not all from Ontario. So not everybody in Ontario wanted these guys to leave. JJ says he's watching in Thunder Bay today. Thank you very much, JJ. Hammer the thumbs up if you wouldn't mind here on Two Guys and a Goalie today, as we are just kicking off a huge afternoon on Edmonton Sports Talk. You will no longer have to go anywhere else for your sports talk needs. I'm very excited for Hernan and Gager on EST afternoons. And then Reed Wilkins has been off the air for a couple months now. He is fired up to get going. I listened to some of their practice shows they did last week. It's going to be an absolutely phenomenal program, and I think everybody is going to love it. Cass, the concerns about, now we'll have to see where the cap's at. Like 5 years into this deal, is the cap over $100 million?
Probably.
I don't think it's, I would think yes. If things continue to trend the way they are for the National Hockey League, even it's going to be at 92 here right away. I mean, it's going to continue to go up. So you have to be careful, but these aren't the contracts that kill you. The contracts that kill you are the overpays to guys that you've made already in the past and you hope they don't make again, right? It's not the McDavid and Draisaitl contracts that are going to put you in a tough spot. Those have to be paid. Those are the guys that are going to lead you to the championships. It's the Jack Campbell contract and then eventual buyout. It's Darnell Nurse had a great season. I get it. He cashed in. A bunch of other defensemen cashed in, but that contract's kind of killing you a little bit right now. Those are the ones that you got to be careful with. You just gotta pay these guys. You just got to pay Bouchard when his deal's up here right away as well. Like those are the ones that, you have to get those done.
Yeah, it's the $5 to $7 million contracts.
Yes,
right now, like in that range, your mid or mid to high range. Those are the ones that kill you. If you were paying Nuge $2 million more a year, not that would kill you, but that's where it bites you. Those are the deals that absolutely crush you. The biggest one right now, Campbell was a big one, but Darnell Nurse still, just the size of that. Again, I don't fault Nurse for that contract, but those are the contracts that can bite you. But for Bouchard, the offense he's going to provide and produce with that power play, you're going to pay the man. Draisaitl, you're going to pay the man. And no, it's not overpaying. This isn't paying a young guy way too much money. This isn't paying someone unproven way too much money and gambling on his future. You're not gambling on Leon Draisaitl, panning out as far as being a player. You're not. Neither will you with McDavid. Now, I guess you could make the argument that Bouchard still has some growth to do. Still could do some things better.
Little scary there.
Little more scarier on that one, I think, because there's just so much more certainty with McDavid and Draisaitl. But I can tell you, there's certainty in the offensive capacity of Bouchard's game. Now, your questions around, okay, well, defensively, he's prone to big blunders. When he makes them, they're big. I get that. Fine, but at the end of the day, he's going to put up a lot of points. So, yeah, those aren't the contracts. You're absolutely right, Dusty, that bite you. It's those $5 to $7 million for those guys that you want to play in your top two pairings on D, or in, I'm riding shotgun with McDavid or Draisaitl, that you just end up paying more than they're worth. Those are the ones that bite you.
When do you think they get Bouchard done, Cass? Would you try to get this done before the season starts as well, or he's an RFA at the end of the year, right? So there's not this threatening, looming over you the whole year that he's just going to walk at the end of the year. Do you think it would be wise to get his deal done now, or do you let another year? Like, how much more could he increase his value this year compared to where it would be right now, do you think?
Guy puts up, the potential to put up somewhere between 80 and 100 points. That is not going to make it cheaper. If I'm Edmonton, I'm trying to get it done soon, because he's going to have another year of just putting up a ridiculous amount of points. I think if he goes to put up, we'll even call it 80 points.
He put up 82 this year. So
I know.
And if he puts up 82 again,
there's going to be, Dusty, even regardless of the occasional lapses in the defensive zone, you're going to start to hear, if he's going to put up over 80 points, you're going to start to hear Norris conversation.
Well, and that's what somebody just said in the chat cast. They're like, if he wins the Norris, cha-ching.
Cha-ching, right? I mean, he's already cha-ching, but even more cha-ching, right? Even if he's a finalist for the Norris, like even more cha-ching. So, I mean, I would be looking at this going, you're going to have to pay him. I would look to try to get him done now or get him done as soon as possible. I don't think there's absolute urgency on it, but there's some urgency on it. And that, he has a really good year. The Oilers win a cup. So let's look at this scenario. What if he wins the Norris? Gets, we'll call it 90 points. So 90 points, wins the Norris, and the Oilers win the cup. You think you're going to get him for cheaper than you would get him now signing?
I mean, that's a lot of good things to happen.
It is.
I mean, that you are going to get screwed. I mean, it'd be great if that happens and people are going to be like, oh no, Bouchard's going to cost you $12.5 million as a defenseman. Like, that would be tough. X-Ray J says, let's say he cracks off 110 points and wins a Norris. Is it 12 to 15 times 8? It's not going to be 15. I mean, he's not going to get more than Leon Draisaitl.
No, but you get 12.
There, but
you get 12.
You see him get, yeah. Well, that's a lot of money, man. So yeah, get him done before regular season starts.
If you could, I don't think it'll happen because.
But if the Oilers come to Bouchard right now and say, "Hey, man, 8 years, 10 mil," you think he says no to that? How are you going to walk away from 80 mil?
That's pretty tough to walk away from. At the same time, he's going to look at it and go, "If I have a really good year, it could be 11 mil, it could be 12 mil." Right. So. That being said, I mean,
yeah, you're saying he could view this as the lowest that he's going to get. Like even if he gets injured, plays 50 games, finishes with 38 to 40 points, he's still probably gonna get 10 mil.
Yeah.
Right. But still, it's nice to have that security locked up, man. $80 million.
Well, I think beyond that, so my brain goes to what if he gets injured and injured absolutely horribly, like horribly.
Yeah.
Where you're like, okay, from a long-term,
he's out for a year with a knee injury, and you don't know what. Yeah,
right, and you don't know what it looks like after that. So there is I think it would be reasonable for him and his camp to look at it to say, hey, we might get more after the season, but let's lock in to where we know you're getting this money. And probably try to structure it in a way where there's heavy signing bonuses. You lock up proof the contract in a lot of ways, and you know you're making your money. And so I still would lean towards, I don't think they get it done before the season starts here, but I hope they're at least talking about it now and trying to move that direction from an organization.
780-218-9999. Zulu says, I want to see him without Ekholm before you even consider 80 million. And JCD 780 says, I'm sorry, Bouchard is a good offensive defenseman, but he is sheltered by Ekholm for his defensive stats. A lot of D-men would put up points per game playing on that power play. Is this the old Andrei Markov thing again? Where Markov got Komisarek a big deal, he got Surrey a big deal. Is that what Ekholm's doing here for Bouchard, Cass? Or do you think there's more to it on his own?
Well, he's not on the power play. Ekholm's not on the power play.
Yeah.
Right now, but what Ekholm does is he steadies
Bouchard's
out.
a wizard on the power play, right? So
Bouchard's a wizard on the power play. He's a wizard in the offensive zone in general.
Yeah.
Ekholm aside, when Bouchard has a puck on his stick moving towards the offensive zone, like when they are when the Oilers have possession, he is a wizard. Now that same wizardry gets him into trouble at times, or the way he manufactures that with his patience and his almost lackadaisicalness in a lot of ways that people get on him about defensively. He creates fantastic offense because of it. Now defensively, having him with an Ekholm brings out the best in him and just steadies him out. You have another guy that plays that steady defensive game, consistent defensive game with him. Yeah, it's gonna help Bouchard. Do you want to see him without Ekholm before you pay him 80 mil? I mean, I don't know, Dusty. What do you think about that?
I mean, part of me is like, yeah, I wouldn't mind it. But the bottom line is when him and Ekholm are together, they make your hockey team so much better. So what you're gonna say, no, you don't play with him for 40 games this season because we want to see who you are.
and then they don't play well as a team in those 40 games, and all of a sudden everybody's bitching that they're only going to finish third in the division instead of possibly winning and having home ice in a conference final. Like it's you probably can't win either way. I'm just looking at other defensemen because this one text did come in from the Gourd father. Only saving grace on Bouchard is no huge D-man contracts besides Carlson. Lots of $9 to $9.5 million contracts out there for top end defensemen. And I'm just looking at it right now. I'm starting to get the hang of this Puckpedia. It's coming around on me. I'm starting to like it. Carlson's at 11.5. Drew Doughty's at 11. Rasmus Dahlin's at 11. Werenski, who signed the nurse year, 9.5. Adam Fox is 9.5. McAvoy's 9.5. Seth Jones was a nurse year signing, 9.5. Darnell Nurse has the 8th highest cap hit right now at 9.25. Roman Josi, who you absolutely love, $9 million bucks. That's a steady $9 million. And then you got Dougie Hamilton at $9 million and Makar at $9 million. So Bouchard finds himself somewhere in there. The Carlson contract's somewhat ridiculous. Doughty's not worth 11 anymore. Rasmus Dahlin's at 11. Bouchard's put up better numbers offensively. Somebody said, how can you possibly justify paying Bouchard even more than 10 when Cale Makar makes 9? Right? Like I think Bouchard probably settles in somewhere around 10, which would make him the fourth highest paid defenseman in the National Hockey League behind two 34-year-olds and then Rasmus Dahlin, who obviously the Buffalo Sabres love. And he's 24 years old. And Rasmus Dahlin is going to be a UFA after 2025. So he's going to cash in again right away.
He's going to cash in again.
Which is pretty impressive. 780-218-9999. It's two guys and a goalie presented to you by GS Construction. If you are looking for a job or you just want to switch up your career a little bit, why not do it with the Sandman and his team over at GS, www.gsconstruction.ca. Just click on Ready to Work. Visit their page at Indeed.ca, and with their Next Up Person program at GS, it's not just a job, it can be a great career. GS Construction. These guys are all over the city. They're doing something down the roadway right now. I can never tell what any of these jobs are, but there's GS Construction trucks all over the place. So something extremely important must be happening just down the street from Edmonton Sports Talk. Chris Run says Colorado stole Makar when he signed that. That's kind of back around to the like the last Draisaitl deal. Remember when he first got it? You're like, like it's probably a little much for the 76 points he put up this year, but this could end up being a really good contract. And I mean, Cass for 100% of it was a good deal, but for like 80% of it, 85% of it was an absolute steal with what he accomplished for you.
Yep. No, absolutely. And that's what you kind of look to but it's always a risk doing that, right? Like it is a risk doing that. I mean, let's look at Edmonton Oilers, and I know it's a forward, so a little bit different, but like a Jeff Skinner contract where they tried to do that with Jeff Skinner. Probably wasn't worth it, right? So there is some risk in doing that, and teams understand that. And you have seen more and more often teams with some of those high-end RFAs earlier in their career, instead of doing the bridge deal, right? Because for a while that was kind of the trend, was do a shorter term bridge deal to try to maintain cap affordability and then pay him more in the next one. And then some teams are going, well, you know what? We have to pay guys too much if they trend the way we think they're going to trend. So let's just pay them now because we can kind of project to what we think they're going to be or what they're going to be. And then we'll have more of a value deal with the big number. And Makar, certainly it worked out. Now, for some guys, it hasn't worked out. Jeff Skinner, as I just alluded to, with Buffalo, that was one that didn't work out at all for Buffalo. So, yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. Bouchard's going to want to get paid market value. Again, I think he gets closer. I don't think you're getting him for 8. You're not getting him.
No, you're not getting him for 8. No, you're getting 8 would make him the 21st highest paid defenseman in the league. You're not getting him for 8.
You're not getting him for 8. I think you're probably getting him for just over 10, somewhere between 10 and 11. That's most likely where I think it'll fall.
Quick correction. I said Rasmus Dahlin, his year he could have become a UFA would have been in 2025. That's like when he technically becomes UFA territory, but he signed through 2031-32. So they've locked him up well beyond 6 years beyond his unrestricted free agency status. So they've got him locked up long term. I could definitely see Bouchard's camp using that $11 million to Rasmus Dahlin as like, hey, look, putting up better numbers than this guy, and I haven't dove into. Now, that being said, I was just bragging. I was like, I'm starting to figure out Puckpedia. Then I screw up that. But then if you look at Puckpedia, they've got like all in the player dashboard. I mean, if you really want to dive into the goals for percentage, Corsi for percentage, all that stuff, it's right there on the same page with the contracts of all of these guys. So a nice, easy tool to compare. Buffalo also has Owen Power signed from up until 2030-31, 2 years beyond his UFA status, at $8.3 million. So yeah, it's a double digit deal for Bouchard, and he'll probably want somewhere right around Rasmus Dahlin. And at that point, there might be a small brief time where Doughty and Carlson are signed till 26, 27, and 11 and $11.5 million cap hit. So he probably won't become the highest paid player, highest paid defenseman in the National. Mind you, I mean, do you think his camp would be like, listen, when the top end forwards come available, they usually become the highest paid forward until the next top 10 guy comes up. I wonder if they go and look like Bouchard's, top 5 in points on the blue line until Makar's deal is up next time. Bouchard slides up to 11.6 or something like that, becomes the highest paid player on the back end.
That's probably going to be your argument.
That would be their discussion, I think.
Yeah. No, and that's probably where they start. I would assume that's where they start from Bouchard's side. Now, Edmonton probably starts right around that 10 million mark.
Yeah.
And Bouchard starts around 11.5, 11.6.
And they
in that range. Yeah. And they kind of meet in the middle. That's again where I think it's somewhere between 10 and 11. The most likely what he ends up with, and maybe it's towards the higher side of that. Maybe like a 10.75. I don't know, but I would assume that. And who knows? With the whole new idea of deferred salary to keep AAV down, maybe.
What do you think about that, Cass? What do you think of the deferred salary as a former player and a guy who dabbles in some finances now with players?
Yeah, I mean, if it helps you get more money because the team ultimately pays you more, that's great. You lock in some certainty with an interest rate. Like there's pros and cons to it. There's pros and cons to it. There's a bird in the hand, which from a finance standpoint, having more money today versus little chunks over a period of time. Generally, if we we'll call it lottery, usually the time value money, you want the money as soon as you can. Usually. So there's some positives to it. That from a tax standpoint, you might be able to spread things out a little bit more. So I don't know. It really does depend on the individual situation, the individual state or province or country that the person lives. Spending habits, there's, I think, a lot that you need to look at it to it. But I think for teams, they're going to look at this as a potential tool to say, we can keep AAV down. We can ultimately pay you more money. And then we can bring in other guys too. So teams, I think I would assume for some of these big contracts, we'll start to see that a little bit more kind of bleed in as teams just want to navigate that cap. And in some ways for them, it's kind of like saying, hey, we're gonna push this down the road, or the cap issue down the road a little bit more to where we think the cap's going to be higher. And I don't know. There's a bunch of considerations. I haven't dug into it, I guess, enough from the exact numbers to figure out how worth it is, but yeah, it's interesting to say the least.
Yeah, I'll be fascinated to see how. I think it was Stoff who asked a question on that availability there with Bowman and Draisaitl today about when Bowman signed Taves and Kane. It was like things were really starting to tighten up, whereas now it looks like the cap's going to start be growing at a little bit of a quicker pace, and it probably changes things for the Oilers moving forward here in the next little bit. Let's see here. Let's get to a couple of your messages. D. White says, how can you think the Oilers can be contenders with 97-29, 2-25, costing them about $49 million, and the cap will be $94 to $96 million? The math here, boys, just doesn't work. Well, we were looking at it ahead to next year when they decided not to match on Broberg and Holloway. And that $7 million that you would have had to carry over with Broberg and Holloway next year It would have killed him. Like the Broberg contract is almost what the raise is to Leon Draisaitl right now. It's not as much, but it's like $500,000 less. So by not signing like it would have been impossible if they would have kept these guys around. So I think they've looked ahead. If the cap's going to go up, when you look at, let me bring up our Puckpedia page here on the Edmonton Oilers, because they've got a bunch of guys already under contract for next year. If you can get, we're talking 2 years from now, if you can get Draisaitl in at this number now at 14, and if you can get Bouchard at maybe 10.5, and then you look at the guys, let me just bring up the, let's see here, Edmonton Oilers. All right, here we go. So this is the current situation for next season with the Oilers. This season, they're pretty much locked and loaded here. Next season, McDavid will be in at 12.5. Leon, it's already locked in there at 14. Hyman's at 5.5. Kane's at 5.125. We'll see what ends up happening with Evander Kane this year. Nuge at the same number, 5.125. Nice deal on the Nuge. Arvidsson got a 2-year deal. He's around at $4 million next year. Henrique got a 3-year deal. He's around at a 2-year deal. He's around at $3 million next year. Skinner's a UFA. He's probably hoping to have a great year here in Edmonton, cash in one more deal somewhere else. Matthias Janmark's in at 1.4. Podkolzin has a contract for next year at $1 million. Corey Perry's a UFA. You can let him walk at that point. Derek Ryan's a UFA next season. You can let him walk at that point as well. Hopefully you have a couple of other younger guys that have moved up along the way. You need to get the Bouchard deal done still at that point. But they look like they'll be able to ice a pretty good team next season with the Draisaitl deal already done here. And then you're going to get McDavid done. McDavid gets whatever he wants because you can't possibly let him go. And then after the McDavid deal gets done in 26-27, when that deal kicks in at 14.5 or 15, probably 15, let's just say 15 mil, Evander Kane's off the books. Arvidsson's off the books. Henrique's off the books. So at that point, Cash, you got some wiggle room, but you got to make sure you use it in the right fashion to keep this team at a contending level, which it should be with McDavid and Draisaitl in their early 30s.
You can have wiggle room. You can have wiggle room. I mean, if the cap doesn't go up as much as you hope it does, or maybe expect it does, it'll make things tighter. And again, like those $5 to $7 million contracts, that's what's gonna kill you. But you're kind of banking on the thrust being able to be, from a conversation or contract negotiation standpoint, being able to get guys on slightly cheaper deals to make up for the amount that you're paying them. Like that's the pitch, right? The pitch is to take a little bit less to come play with McDavid and Draisaitl. Take a little bit less to come have a chance at winning the Stanley Cup. So, I think there's going to be wiggle room. It doesn't immediately hamstring you.
Well, as somebody just pointed out, like McDavid, if he gets 15 mil, it's only 2.5 more than he's making now, right? It's not like this Draisaitl $5-6 million bump. So it's
this was the biggest bump, and then Bouchard will be the next big bump. Yeah,
I mean, if you just let Derek Ryan and Corey Perry walk, you've got your $15 million for Connor McDavid, right? And it's a matter of how much can you spend on an Arvidsson type or an Evander Kane type or Henrique. Find a veteran bottom six center for a reasonable amount. So I don't know. I don't think I don't think you have to be overly worried. And we'll talk about it, this time next year. But I don't think you have to be overly worried about them being screwed by the cap right now, unless they do it to themselves in the next, free agency next year, or they get crazy and you're like, okay, well, this is kind of backfiring a little bit for the next year. But I think they've probably learned some lessons along the way, Cass, with cap management. And you're hoping that Jeff Jackson in place, and he obviously really likes Stan Bowman, you're hoping those guys this time can maneuver around some of the issues that the last group had in place. Let's see here. 780-218-9999. Maddie, what time do we got to be out today with EST afternoon starting at 1 o'clock? How much time do you need? What do you think? 5 minutes? Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll get out at 12:55 today. And then, man, I am excited. Hernan's just pacing around here. He's just so fired up. I'm so pumped.
The Latino heat. I'm so excited to have that spun up.
It's going to be good. He's going to be awesome with you guys on pre and post, Cass.
This is going to be fun.
We might as well just lay it out here right now. GCL Diesel is back on pre and post game, and having a presence on a lot of our other stuff on the Nielsen show and on the Reed Wilkins show. So GCL Diesel cranking it up a notch here on Edmonton Sports Talk this year. So huge shout out to Cam and his team over there for all the support, man. We absolutely love it. And we are going to be firing on all cylinders come hockey season, that's for sure. Between now and then, we'll, of course, still have to have that handsome man draft that we're looking to have here on the Hangout at some point. But we'll take care of that when the time comes. Cozy's in and says, hey, fellas, everyone talking about Bouchard just being a PP specialist. His points are 60% even strength and 40% on the power play. McDavid's about 66 even strength and 33% on the power play. It's not so much being a PP specialist. He's just like an offensive wizard. It's
offensive
not,
guy.
Like some of the decisions he makes with the puck, some of the passes that he sees that other guys don't even see, his offensive IQ is a 10 out of 10 cast. It just doesn't get any better than when that guy brings to the table.
Yeah, no, and patience offensively with the puck. You see him wait out guys at the blue line all the time, like just waiting, then a little step, then moves the puck or shoots the puck. He's fantastic at it. Just waiting for open lanes, waiting for players to move, to adjust. Giving his own teammates a split extra second to move or to find space. And when you're playing with highly creative guys, the ability to do that is huge. It's massive. And again, on occasion in the defensive zone, that patience can get him into a little bit of trouble because in the defensive zone, as opposed to being in the offensive zone, players will pressure you a little bit more. They're not worried about you scoring a goal when you're in your own zone. And so there's a little bit, they're able to take your time and space away a little bit more, and they have to respect what you're able to do offensively a little bit less, which is on occasion, again, where that little extra patience that he has can bite him because it ends up being a mistake. But with what he is able to do in the offensive zone, you deal with it. It's risk reward with the player. You deal with that, and you deal with those occasional mistakes because of what he can do in the offensive zone and how much offense he provides.
Cass, first day of school for my kids today. You too, or did they start last week?
No, it started last week.
They did start last week. How'd first day of school go for you?
They were awesome. They love it. Great teachers. My oldest loves the teacher she has. My second has the same teacher, grade 2 that the oldest had, who is fantastic.
Perfect.
So she's good there. I will say, as I'm sure you will see, they were tired. Very emotional.
We had to wake them up today. They were just like,
but like when they come home, it's, they had a great time. Like they're all excited. It was a fun day, but then it's just like the emotional swings are bigger because you just know they're exhausted from having to get back into that structure. So, but no, they've been good. What
do you remember being more important, having your friends in your class or having like the teacher in the grade? Every grade has like that one teacher everybody wants. Would you rather have had the teacher or like the bad teacher, but have your buddies in your class?
Oh, I was more buddies. With the reason being, I was like, even with the bad teacher, you can still have fun with your buddies.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Good teacher is good, but you might not have as much fun. I was like, I want my buddies there.
Yeah, like Marshall kind of got hosed a bit this year. He's with a teacher that like a lot of the moms are like, oh no. And then all of his buddies are in the other two classes. So he was at school today. Dumb. He was just like, I said to him, listen, son, it's only 10 months.
Yep. And you know what?
Get through the 10 months.
Like you gotta remember too, is like each kid has a different experience. And if you can work with them on how to communicate with the teacher and, utilizing their strengths and all that, then it's a benefit. But I don't know. Sometimes school setup, and it certainly was this way for me at times, can be challenging for energetic boys who learn by moving and doing and running and jumping and, not just sitting and listening. So yeah, you gotta navigate that a little bit. But yeah, that's a double whammy. A little bit tough there.
Tough one. He had to start by wearing Crocs to school today because his foot's all banged up. So he's just like rolling into school in Crocs with his teacher that he's like, and then all his buddies are in another class. I turned around and looked at him on the way out. He just kind of looked at me. He's just like, I was like, it's going to be okay, man. Yeah. Let's get through the first day.
Tell him it's an opportunity to make some new friends too.
Look, man, right? if he doesn't like it, I'll take him out of grade 4 and he can start working at EST.
There you go.
He can assist YouTube Trevin Zacticum and stuff behind the scenes.
Yeah.
That might be the one that works. So, yeah, Surveyor Brett says, was Marsh even able to walk to school with that foot? Well, we got him in his Crocs. It helps a little bit. Foot's starting to heal up, so we'll see. We didn't get a call from the doctor, so we don't think it's broken. It's just a really, really bad sprain, and starting to come around a little bit. So, well, I'm sure he's going to be. You're right, though. He's going to be banged up after school today, man. That's going to be tough. So, a monumental day here on Two Guys and a Goalie. Leon Draisaitl, 8-year deal, $14 million per, and the fun just continues here as Hernan is like a bull in the chute right now. Like he's pacing back and forth. If you're looking for a weird rodeo reference, Hernan Salas is ready to roll. Gage will be with him as well. It's EST afternoons. We're going to be out here in about 90 seconds. We'll get them set up. They will take over from 1 to 3. And then from 3 until 6 today, we will have the Reed Wilkins show as Reed Wilkins made the move from Chet over here to Edmonton Sports Talk. And between the football game and what we got with the Oilers today, 2 juicy shows locked and loaded the rest of the way today on Edmonton Sports Talk. And hopefully, like many of you, I got to run to Italian Center Shop and pick up some stuff for tomorrow's morning show. But as I do, I'll be listening on TuneIn and iHeart to the new content in the afternoons right here on EST. Beautiful. Cass, you're in the office today. Turn it on and listen, or watch the boys, listen to the boys, see how it goes.
I will have it on 100%.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. That's gonna do it for Two Guys and a Goalie today. As always, Two Guys and a Goalie presented to you by GS Construction, setting the industry standard for 50 years of quality, efficiency, and safety driving their success. GS Construction has built a foundation on teamwork, and now they want you to become a part of the team. Visit www.gsconstruction.ca, click Ready to Work, or visit their page at Indeed.ca. And with the Next Up Person program at GS Construction, it's not just a job, it is a career. Of course, it was just 2 guys today. We did not have our goalie because he filled in on the morning show, and he's locked and loaded here on EST Afternoons, which is coming up at 1 o'clock right here on Edmonton Sports Talk. Cass, good show today, buddy, and we'll talk to you later in the week.
Sounds good.